So it's great to be here with you all. I like a roving mic because I don't stand still. So you can hear me properly. I'm going to use this one. So as Kerry said, I'm SVP of Utilities at WNS Global, so Business Process Outsourcer. And I'm also the co-founder of the Women's Utilities Network. And so it's a blended version that I'm coming with because I've worked in the utilities sector the majority of my career. And I'm going to talk a bit about it from a human capital perspective in the supply chain. So firstly, a lot of the things that have been said today, I feel like when I've been sat there, I could tick them off my list. Yeah, I was going to say that. I was going to say that. So I'm going to try and quickly sort of wrap some of that up and then move on to some of the things that forward-thinking organisations are really doing to make a difference from a diversity and inclusivity perspective. So I think it was the gentleman over here who said there's lots of research about organisations that perform better if they're diverse. They have a diverse workforce. And I think the first one was 1982, and it was a HBR research piece. So 1982, so that's 40-something years ago. Yeah. And you can search the internet and you can ask most business leaders that a diverse and inclusive workforce creates a more profitable and more successful business. Yeah. And we're all nodding. Yeah. So what has everybody been doing for the last 40 years? I think that's the first question. We know it. We say we know it, but actually what is everybody doing about it? The Equality Act, 2010. Wow. I mean, really, 2010. Do you know when the first version came out? 2010. I mean, seriously. And that came in because we weren't doing all the things we needed to do. And then we've got a massive now role of recruiting ED&I leads or chief ED&I people on boards and things like that. Now, don't get me wrong, I am an advocate of having people who represent that, but it cannot be just a tick box exercise. And a lot of what happens in the supply chain and in recruitment and that is a tick box exercise. And so I think that's a really, really important thing that we have to consider. So policies, I've talked about, mentioned policies. We do need policies. They are the framework within which we need to operate. So I'm not saying we don't need them, we absolutely do need them. But anybody in reality can have a policy. You know, if you're looking at smaller organisations that I've been working with from a network perspective are trying to work in the supply chain, and they're saying, help, we don't have this kind of policy. Who can help us write this kind of policy? They need it for the process they're going through. So anybody can write a policy. It's living it and doing it that actually is going to make a difference. And that's where I want to spend sort of the majority of the time, is thinking about some of the things that organisations are doing in actually meaningful action to change things, and not just having a policy in place, not just being a tick box exercise. One of the quotes here was about the advocacy in the room. So you're here because you care, you're interested. I founded a women's network because I care and because I'm interested. It's all the other people we need to be able to influence. And what happens with movements, such as the Women Network I founded, we have now 6,000 members and 50 organisations partnering with us. But we're women-founded advocacy for women, and the people we need to influence are men. So recognising you and what you're doing in your role, who are the people in the wider chain that you need to be influencing. And that's part of the bigger picture when we start on these challenges. So I've put together a number of things here in terms of not being a tick box exercise and not about the policy, about a broader set of design outcomes. And that's what I'm calling it. When a goal becomes a target, a metric, or a quota, it's lost its effectiveness, because everything we drive then is about a number. So it needs to be a design outcome. What does it look like? What are we trying to achieve? Brand awareness is a huge thing. If you look at a recruitment, say actually, I'm going to do it from a woman's perspective, but hopefully you can translate it into your business. But if I wanted to ensure that majority of the boards, I think the EU directive is to have 40% of females on the board by 2026. Yeah. So we need a pipeline of high quality, high talent women, because nobody wants to be a quota. We want to get the job because we're the best person for the job, and not get the job because we need a quota. So we've got to start with a brand awareness, a recruitment, a long-term strategy to have that pipeline there. They're not just going to magic up. So if you've got 60% of your workforce at the ground roots being female, but 10% at the top, what's happening on that journey? How do you maintain that retention strategy to get that talent pull through? And this goes across the whole of the ED&I chain. I'm giving examples from a woman's perspective, but this is actually goes across all the ED&I chain. So firstly, brand awareness is really, really important. How are you recruiting and getting a broad talent pool into your organisation? Anybody here Brighton and Hove Albion fan? Fabulous. So it's great. So a research piece they did were around when children choose their football team. And apparently it's age 8. Okay, so about age 8. So they embrace schools and the community and give out football shirts to age 8 children or thereabouts. They're starting their brand awareness and advocacy from a young age. So if you want to recruit a diverse workforce into your company or into your supply chain, where are you going to get those workforce of the future? There is some science and data that underpins all of this as well. Okay, keeps going out. And then there's community engagement as well, in terms of working with the community that is a reflection of your organisation. So depending on who you're serving, is your organisation a reflection of that community? Do you understand that community and how you can do outreach and activities to them as well? So this all fills into culture, value, and the recruitment strategy. I'm not going to quote the actual orchestra, some of you will probably know it, but it's a world famous orchestra that's been trying to increase the diversity of the musicians in their orchestra and failing miserably for a number of years until they put the musicians behind screens when they're recruiting, and they just listened to the music rather than watched the music, and they did change the diversity of the people they're recruiting. So sometimes we think we're not biased, but we are. And therefore, when we look at that broader recruitment strategy, and here obviously I'm talking about human capital, and you guys may be talking more about sourcing here. But the same principles apply. We think that we're not biased. We think things are set up to be objective, but sometimes even still they're not in that case. And then retention strategy as well, in terms of making it easy for people to stay within the organisation as well. The world has changed so much in the last few years, partly driven by COVID, and that ability to sort of work anywhere. But it also changed in terms of family values and expectations as well. So being actually offering flexible working environment helps to recruit a huge talent pool. And I'm not just talking about women here, I'm really talking about people with disabilities as well. there's a massive untapped talent pool out there that flexibility would enable. But when you are looking at sourcing, gender pay gap. So there's a lot of organisations who have to report gender pay gap because their size. A lot of organisations who don't have to report it but choose to. And there's a lot of organisations who don't report it. There's not actually a requirement for an ethnicity pay gap reporting, but there should be. And lots of other things as well. But this comes back to probably the important thing, the most important thing that gets in a lot of the way of what all of us are trying to do, and that's disclosure. So to be able to have good data, to be able to make decisions on any of these things, the people that we work with or the people who work for us have to be comfortable in disclosing who they are, what their characteristics are, to make it reportable, to make it to be able for organisations to be able to report that they are diverse and that they have a broad range in workforce, and that actually it can be easy to work for them. But a staggering 60% of people say they don't want to disclose that information to their employers. And therefore, organisations that are sharing information about their workforce are doing it sometimes by guesswork or assessment. It's not a full detailed disclosure of the nature of the workforce they have to work for them. And for me, this is a huge, huge area for people to invest in because it's trust. I trust you as my employer or my partner to look after my data and use that data in my best interests. It's a massively complex area and something you could spend a huge amount of time talking on as well, which I've linked in there with data. And for me, data is the foundation of probably a lot of the problems, but also a lot of the solutions that we face in growing new partnerships and new communities when working with global organisations, because we can only make really good, robust decisions with really good, robust data. So that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the key elements, and I've seen these in organisations here in the UK that are really embracing this activity. They're designing outcomes about the company they want to be, the kind of company that people want to work with, the kind of values that this organisation has, and then they're going back and looking at their recruitment strategy, their retention strategy, and their brand awareness. They're not setting goals to do that. Their outcomes and ambitions are quite aspirational, and then they are targeting what those inputs are to make a difference. And we're talking about meaningful actions and not setting out wider aspirations. One of the examples I think brings this to life is allyship. It's probably, I suppose, a trendy word at the moment. Everyone's saying allyship is really important. And for me, allyship is you standing next to me or me standing next to you in solidarity of your cause. I'm right there with you, supporting you. Intentional or direct allyship is that you are going forward out of your way to change and make a difference, to affect change, those meaningful actions. And those are the step changes that we'll see to impact ED&I strategies and to create truly equitable and diverse workforces going forward. The thing with short-term targets is that it's not going to change quickly. It's not going to change quickly. When I set up the women's network, it wasn't for my generation and our career. It's for my children's generation, because that's how long it's going to take. If you look at your talent pools and the breadth of them now, you're going to have to go to school generation to be able to change those. It's a 10 or 15 year making. So by putting in targets for 2026 and trying to scramble around to make those happen, we might make some bad decisions. And on that note, I'll leave it, unless anyone's got any questions.